All
I
right,
gotta see
everybody.
that.
Hello. We're live. We're
not ready yet.
Luckily,
Savage
we
and I
can.
are having a discussion about the tick on Amazon.
Dude, the original cartoon, badass. The original live motion with what's his name, who does all the voices of like the guys on Family Guy.
Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, Patrick Warburton. That guy is freaking legit.
Oh, you mean? So what are you guys doing?
Yes. Oh my God, that was
Brock Sampson.
Yeah. Oh God,
that was fantastic.
Sean, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Is this what you have to deal with every week? Well, so we got Savage, we got Weerd. This is a madhouse.
We don't have any train of thought going on here. This is like 80.
I'm a trained professional.
They're trying to make me do imitations of Patrick Warburton, and it's not working.
It was okay. You
Yeah,
guys got a halfway
decent.
decent Patrick Warburton. Yeah.
I'd have to. Well, no. It's that show, Rules of Engagement. My wife watches it all the time. Audrey, what are you doing? Get your head out of your ass.
Nice.
But yeah, no. Okay.
For those of you listening live, this is good stuff because this is not going in the podcast.
Yeah, this won't go on the podcast, so this will be edited out. So enjoy it while you can.
Aw.
You want to start reading your little canned ready?
Oh yeah, hold on. There's.
You guys only have like, oh, okay. I guess you're wow. Okay, now you have a whole ton of notes. Like when I first got on here, there was like nothing.
All right, so sorry to everybody who's watching live. I just had everything double up. So I hope you didn't hear that. So, all right, here we go. Hello and welcome to Handgun Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Bachad from the wild woods of Central Maine. And this is your home for all the news, information, and discussion in the handgunning world.
Well, just try it again there, pro guy.
Hello and welcome. Savage.
What? I did nothing. Okay, I changed it.
Hello. I got to change that. Everybody's watching this. This is so embarrassing. Hello and welcome to Handgun Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Bachad from the wild woods of Central Maine, and this is your home for all the news, information, and discussion in the handgunning world. This week, we discuss firearm accessories that can be used in other ways, as well as Savage1R's 22 Sterling. So as always, Handgun Radio is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network, and please check out the Patriot Patch Company for their awesome patches and other high-quality items. Visit patriotpatch.co for more information. And as always, shop Amazon using our affiliate link, firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. And Weerd, if you wanted to help support Handgun Radio, how would you do it?
I would get a money order and I would send it to Savage1R so he can buy some guns. Or you could go to firearmsradio.tv/ wait, no, that's Amazon affiliate link. Jeez, this is terrible. I'd go firearmsradio.tv/pledge and click on HGR.
You know, I tell Ryan Bachad to get a Bitcoin wallet and have people donate Bitcoins to him.
Oh yeah, lots of Bitcoins.
And there are a bunch of different pledge levels over there that you can go choose from if you haven't yet supported the show, and we thank the people who already have. So, Savage, good Lord, we'd never have you on the show. What's going on?
You know, it's been a busy week. I've had a lot of shit breaking down on me. I've been busy fixing it. You know, it's been busy for me.
Did you make any terrifying leather holsters this week?
Okay, so I do have a small confession to make.
Oh my God.
I haven't finished it yet, though I don't think any of my holsters could be considered finished by any stretch of the imagination. But I did make a little one for the 22 Sterling.
Aw.
It's really cute.
Have you taken any pictures of them?
I did. I think I sent one to.
What is the rivet?
Don't send one to me.
No. Okay. What is the rivet to leather ratio?
Well, the leather. I mean, the Sterling is such a tiny pistol to begin with. Like I literally took a strip and folded it over and put in 4 rivets, and that was it. Like,
okay,
there was nothing.
So while we are on this, we might as well talk about your Sterling because I heard you talk about it on last week's show. And at the end of the day, I really want to see how you feel about it.
At the end of the day. Yeah. Well, you know, if anybody doesn't know, I think, Ryan, you're more or less the inspiration for me getting this little pistol. I'd looked on a local forum, not forum, I guess it's more like a local eBay for guns called gunagents.com, and a shop had one for sale for $50. It was a gunsmithing special. The only thing that was wrong with it was that it was missing an extractor spring, and the retaining pin. So I was kind of looking, I was like, God, it's a $50 gun. You can't really go wrong, and there's not a whole lot to put in this thing together, at least from what it looked like. So I went ahead, put in my bid, and nobody else bid on it. So I, with taxes and everything told, I walked out the door with it for about $54, and I was pretty happy with it. So when I went out to the range last weekend to go and shoot some other guns for some other reviews, I took it out there. Obviously didn't have the extractor in it, so I basically used my knife blade to pull out each shell after I shot it. But this thing, for what it is surprisingly accurate. Like, I mean, if you look down the sights, it's a trench with a couple nubs as the rear sights, and then just another little itty bitty nub in the middle of the trench for a front sight. So it's really freaking difficult to aim. Probably not even meant to be aimed for the most part, but using the sights, it's dead on. Like, you'd have to try hard to miss with this thing. So that was pretty fun. The recoil was real mild because it's an all steel frame gun, so it's got a little bit of heft to it, but it's not too heavy. It was cool. So I got that, brought it back home. I went on New Merch Gun Parts, and I was able to find an extractor and the extractor spring. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the retaining pin to hold it in. So I was looking around. So I called the gun shop that I originally bought it from, and he recommended a fastener shop that was just literally down the road. So I went down there, and I said, look, I brought the slide, or the slide frame with me, and I said, look, here's the slide. Do you have any pins that will fit in that tiny little hole? And they brought me back like 10 of them. They said, here, just take them. So I was like, well, here, let me just give you $1 for them. So I took it home. It looked like it would be a little thick, but it's a roll pin, so I was able to crimp it just a little bit, and with a punch and a little bit of effort, it fit right in perfectly. And I did some test feeding and extraction, and it works like a champ. And these things are extremely simple to take apart and to service. They're beautiful little guns. I think the only thing that I'm probably going to do on it is maybe do some cold bluing, because the previous owner got a little creative with the ejection port, and the main housing that holds the barrel got peened out to the point where it was scraping the inside of the slide, so I had to kind of knock that back together with a hammer. So I'm going to touch up some of those spots, but I'm really looking forward to go back to the range with this thing.
They are. I wish that I had the pictures and everything. I wish that I was more into video and everything back when I actually worked on the gun. Because when I did it, I didn't do Handgun Radio, and I didn't really do any YouTube videos. It was just before I started doing the reloading bench videos, where I'd prop the camera up and I showed like the difference between the wad cutter and the difference in powder density between various powders and stuff. And so I don't have any more info, but I remember like I worked on one for a guy. It wouldn't work. Ended up polishing the feed ramp, or what passed for a feed ramp.
It's just
cleaning it up everywhere, kind of smoothing all the surfaces out with like really fine steel wool, going through the gun and like just kind of taking off any rough edges, and it ended up functioning perfectly. And like you said, it was super accurate.
Yeah, and when you've got it, when you've got the problems out of it, the cycle is really smooth. I mean, the slide is smooth as butter. It moves back and forth, and without any kind of effort whatsoever. I'm like, it feels like it would be the spring feels like it would be too light for a normal 22, but I mean it worked just fine. So I mean it's just a great little like Honda Civic Type 22.
Well, and you want lighter, I think, in this case, as opposed to heavier, only because it almost feels like a spring that's been like worn out.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. That's exactly how it feels.
But you don't have any like out of battery detonations. I've never seen, like, you know, the first time I shot it, I picked up the first few cases to see if there was any indication that it opened early or something, and it didn't. And you'd be surprised at what, if you just take the slide off and you have a gun that's really gunked up and it's having problems, you'd be surprised. Put like a little mineral oil on it, just kind of thin it out, and use some really fine steel wool, run it over that fixed barrel, you know, any contact surfaces on the pistol, and you might end up getting it to be a little bit more reliable because it might, you know, cycle smoother on all the contact surfaces. That's what I did on the first gun that I saw, and I liked that gun. I wish he wanted to keep it, but I would have bought it from him if he was wanting to sell it.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like Numerich Gun Parts has every single part available, obviously except for the extractor pin, and the lower receiver, but like everything's there. So if you run across one of these things in a store and they're just trying to toss it out, pick it up, because like the parts for this thing are like nothing. Like you can get a slide for, I think they were selling for $27-$34, something like that. I mean, it's really inexpensive to put something like this together out of a parts gun.
Yeah, I really like it. You need to do videos on it though for your channel.
Yeah, well, not my channel. I do stuff for WLS now. I think the last thing I put up on my channel was last week on how to a little interesting way I figured out how to load double stack, double feed magazines.
Well, I want to see video of it wherever it goes.
Okay, I'll let you know.
All right.
And in the end, you got to say, no matter how this thing works or how you feel about it, it is a prototypical Saturday Night Special.
Absolutely.
It's one of the guns that is super horrible and bad, and they do not want you to own one. And you know what? That's the reason why I have a Jennings J22 and why I probably paid way more than it's worth to get one.
And if I recall correctly, is Sterling the brand that got sued out of existence because somebody shot a kid in the neck? Is that how it happened, or was that a different one?
I seem to remember that being like Cobra. Sterling isn't associated at all with any of like the Ring of Fire guns, I don't believe.
Yeah, this stuff's out of New York. The Ring of Fire was all California.
Yeah, this is all like New York, New Jersey,
Arizona, and I think New Mexico or maybe Nevada.
Yeah,
but
I'd have to
they weren't all there
for sure. This, to me, this gun was a bit above Saturday Night Special. Like, it was not on the same level as a Jennings. It wasn't far away from that level. But
it's a Friday evening special.
Yeah, Friday evening is probably better. So weird.
Maybe Sunday morning.
What'd you do, Weird?
Not a whole lot. I was buried in stuff to do all week. Did not get a chance to go out to the range. I need to get my ass out to the range. So next week, hopefully, I will have a better update. It'll probably be a boring update, but I'll pop some primers. Also tried to fix my bug assault, and I hate that so many people do the adding these weird like screw heads to things and all that just to keep users from servicing their equipment. This one, the screws are down in these deep wells, and they're kind of in between. They're not micro screws, but they're not your standard head screw. And all of the shanks on all my screwdrivers are too fat to actually get down to the screw head inside these little wells. Ugh. So I don't know. I
need to buy a bag of salt.
I may dig around in my toolbox and see if I can find one that's just a little bit more narrow than some of the other ones, and maybe luck out and get one. But certainly I've got like my go-to screwdriver is one of the little interchangeable socket kinds, and that the socket is way too fat. It just bottoms out.
Savage, why don't you have a bug of salt?
I don't know. My wife is kind of leery about guns, which has always made things kind of interesting.
Thankfully, the bug of salt is not a gun.
You could just tell her it's a modern way to season your food.
Well, she cooks Indian food, and they use a ton of salt. So.
There you go.
Let me
save her time. Oh, so this week, well, we'll start with this. a lot of you guys see the pictures on the Handgun Radio Facebook page when there are like new guns that have come out. Stuff like the Maxim 9, the Beretta APX, and stuff like that. All that new stuff that you see me post, that was because of a guy that worked at my local shop named Drew. And the other week he passed away. He apparently, had some issues and ended up taking his own life. And I just want you guys, anybody who's listening, if you're in that same situation, call the number. We'd Like Shooting has been sharing it for a long time. It's 1-800-273-8255. But talk to somebody. And I know, that's hard to do, especially sometimes when you're going through whatever. And just definitely do that, and it really does affect a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are affected by this in my local community. Not only, his family, obviously, just being a terrible situation, but people that he worked with. And, I'll be forever thankful to him. Every time something new came into the shop, he'd let me know, because he knew that, I'd want to come up and take pictures or video of it and show it to you guys. So, yeah, it's really been hard, and there's a lot of people that are affected by it. So if you do need that, definitely use those resources.
Yeah, suicide it's affected a lot of people. It's affected me. I had somebody who passed away this weekend. People lose hope, and they go. I've often heard it. They go down a dark hole and they feel like there's no way out. But reach out to your friends and family. They want to help you. They want you here. You're a valuable person, and you have worth. And it's not the end of the world. You can make it through this, but you don't have to make it through it alone.
And there's people out there, but you can't understand it. And if you're someone who has experienced it, you shouldn't have any guilt because you felt like you couldn't do anything. And that's the one thing I've tried to say to some people. I mean, as you guys may or may not know, I spent 4 years studying psychology. I have a bachelor's in clinical psych from the University of Maine. And I still don't understand it. And I don't think a lot of people who are further educated beyond my level understand it. And it's a very, very complex issue. So just please try to reach out to those resources that you have out there. So now we have a few actually emails from listeners. A lot of people want to talk about their dream guns, Weerd.
It was a good show.
Yeah. Thank you for telling everybody to email in, because we're still getting them.
That's awesome.
Now, Savage, you were mad at me because I didn't read it the first time we had an episode talking about it.
Yeah, I heard you guys catch up on it. You gave me a nod. I definitely appreciated that. It was short, but I'll take what I can get.
So, Weerd, you want to read listener Kirk?
All right. My dream gun would be an updated gyrojet pistol. Okay, already there. We're going nuts. Lots of advantages there. Fewer moving parts, such as the no reciprocating slide, light, gentle recoil, etc. Update the ammunition for it. Maybe use something like a Magnum pistol primer or a 22 nail gun blank for ignition. It was an early I was an early adopter of the R51. The most frustrating part about that was how tight-lipped the Remington. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Tight-lipped the Remington was about it all. On the plus side, it got a pretty decent 1911 out of the deal. I bought a Generation 2, and I'm happy with it. It does have a few quirks, particularly the reloader. However, it's a fun gun, runs reliably, and you find the ammunition that it likes. Yeah, I gotta say though, the gyrojet is really cool, especially when you realize how light they are, because the gun doesn't contain any pressure, and that's like the ultimate thing you hear about, like the first time you ever held a real gun. Oh my God, they're so heavy. And the reason why guns are heavy is because they've got to contain all the pressure of the round. Even if it's a 22, that's a lot of pressure.
So I have a picture of me holding a gyrojet carbine at Julia's auction house last year.
Yep.
And
how much did that weigh?
I think the revolver in my picture that you see on Google Hangouts weighs more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yep, they're super duper light, so that is really cool. The downside is that you're shooting a rocket.
They're not pressure bearing.
Yeah, it's not pressure bearing. The downside is that yes, the ammunition was spotty, and I gotta say, I think you're always gonna have that problem because you kind of want the ammo to be cheaper than the gun, because yeah, that's just how it's gonna go. It's gonna be tough to get the quality just right for each and every little rocket that is still essentially a pistol round or a rifle round, but with these things, they need to accelerate, and your muzzle velocity is going to be very, 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 very slow. Like making a Webley look like a jackrabbit.
You could probably do a Yosemite Sam or a Bugs Bunny and stick your finger in the barrel and stop the damn thing from coming out.
you probably could. I don't know about actually probably you could, because I think you'd be able to hold the pressure back at that point in time.
Yeah. And then there's all that gas shooting out the sides of the I don't know, the guide slide or whatever the hell that thing was.
The whole thing looks like it was built out of erector set pieces.
Yeah.
Just the downside is I think it reached like maximum velocity at like something like 150 yards or something like that. Something that was like way further than most people consider handgun range.
Yeah, and I'm doubting it was very accurate.
So I mean, he says with updated ammunition, that could be solved by. I mean, the big issue was that it was the bullets were gyroscopically stabilized by the fact that the ports for the rocket fuel were at angles, and so a little bit of a manufacturing error on those can make a huge difference downrange. If say one of the ports has like a little bit of a crimp to it or a little bit of a manufacturing defect on it,
any difference in gas pressure will send it off.
It's going to hook like crazy versus factory pistol. That's why they target. That's why they shoot them at the factory, is just to make sure that those rounds aren't going out sideways. The barrel's not, if the barrel's stabilizing the round, it's going to stabilize all the rounds. So you could, with better ammunition, you could fix that part. But the downside is that at your standard handgun range, which is like, arm's length out to like, 15 yards, which is like the huge portion of handgun shooting ranges, whether you're talking about military or, military police or civilian self-defense, you're not going to get even really effective muzzle velocity out of those things. And I think that there's laws against having them detonate. That would be one solution, is to make it that, yes, you hit the person and it's only going 300 feet per second, but then it explodes.
Yeah, I think there's a minimum charge amount. I don't know what size it is, but I doubt that whatever is fitting in a gyrojet is going to exceed that amount.
Probably.
So we have listener Robert. His fantasy handgun doesn't require much. He loves 1911s, but would like a few additional features.
Like my kind of 1911s?
Your derivative?
Yes.
Double stack with...
We were going to go after it anyway.
I cut you off at the pass, man.
Double stack with 15-round capacity, decocking lever, loaded chamber indicator, ambidextrous safety, steel or aluminum frame. He says, I understand the FNX 45 has all these features except that it has a polymer frame. The 227 SIG has a steel frame, but I see no mention of the other features. I fired a pair of Ordnance P1445, and I loved it, except for the fact that it was rather jamtastic. We've had that experience, haven't we, Weerd? Well, not jamtastic, but doing the shooting the LDA and being like, would that set a primer off?
Yeah. I mean, I've only shot maybe like 8 or 9 rounds through an LDA, and every single one of them went off. But it's a goofy gun.
Felt so weird.
It's a goofy gun.
I mean, if you do look at his description, it does look like a 6900 or 5904, 5906.
Yeah.
Basically.
But Weerd, this guy specifically asked you a question. So, what is the deal with polymer frames? Why do people like them so much? I'm guessing they're lighter and more corrosion resistant. How would they do if I soaked them in hops number 9 for 24 hours? Any thoughts on double stacked 1911s, including STI, H&K? Walther PPQ 45. I'm sure Weerd must have something to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why, I mean, I am a huge advocate of polymer frames, even though I'm a 1911 guy. I was carrying a lightweight scandium frame 1911 all day today. But you know, when somebody says, what gun do I buy? I'm always pointing in the direction of polymer frame, because as a general rule, when you look at a polymer framed gun, you're going to find that it's going to have a similar weight to an aluminum framed gun for an all steel variant that has a similar size. But you're going to find the recoil profile is just so much nicer. It's going to something like, you know, like a Glock 17 is going to, you know, shoot like a, you know, is going to shoot like a, you know, a Beretta Inox. I think is the frame of the Beretta Inox frame. They're all stainless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to shoot like a Beretta Inox, but it's going to have, you know, it's going to shoot like a Beretta Inox, but it's going to weigh, you know, as much as the aluminum framed, you know, 92. It's kind of the best of both worlds. And on top of that, injection molding polymer is super duper cheap. As for hops number 9, I actually don't. I have a bottle of the stuff on my bench that I just open up and take a sniff of ever so often because I love the smell of hops number 9.
So good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that was definitely when I was, you know, when I went to like my buddy's house for the, you know, to go shoot guns, and then we'd shoot guns, and then we'd go down, you know, and then we'd go down to his dad's workbench and clean them all. We were using hops number 9, but I find it doesn't clean as well. I use M Pro 7. That's my preferred cleaner. I find it doesn't clean nearly as well, though I have seen some really cool tests done by some people that show that like it's actually really, really good to for corrosion resistance on your guns. I believe the number one like ingredient in hops number 9 is like kerosene, and I don't think it'll dissolve a polymer frame. I don't think it'll eat into it.
I think his biggest question to you was, as a guy who likes 1911s and obviously likes 45 ACP, what are your feelings on double stack 45 polymer pistols? I
like a lot of them out there. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of H&K anything really. The VP9 and is an exception. Haven't shot the PPQ 45, have handled the PPQ 9mm, and I got to imagine that the 45 is probably pretty nice. If I was going to buy and was able to, note I live in Massachusetts, if I was going to buy a double stack 1911 tomorrow, I'd probably make it a 45, though maybe a 9. I don't know. It's hard to say. I kind of lean towards 45 and 1911s just because you're dealing with that action length no matter what. I'd go with an STI, and that's again polymer. It's a combination frame because it's the dust cover and rails I believe are steel, but the grip frame and trigger guard is polymer, and those are awesome guns.
Well, if he wants to step just a little bit outside the 1911s, the SAR K2 is SAR K2 is a 14-round 45. Built up like a CC75, I think.
So what country do you buy that from, comrade?
Nothing but Turkey.
Turkey
makes good guns, man. People, you know, will knock it all down.
Magazine?
No, I don't think that's a Beretta magazine. An amazing amount of guns take Beretta-style magazines.
So I actually haven't had any experience with the SAR thing.
SAR is like
21.
SAR K2.
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 Okay.
Yeah. They're another Turkish producer, much like Canik or Janik, however they want to produce it. It's really affordable. I mean, you're talking under $400, I think, for these guns, and you get a DASA. I don't know that it has a decocker. It definitely has a safety. But yeah, 14 round magazines aren't bad for 45.
Throw something in the show notes.
All right, I'll find something.
Yeah. And by the way, his talk about the SIG 227, I believe that actually has an aluminum frame, but I actually haven't looked too closely at it. But that's double stack decocking lever. It doesn't have a safety, and it's double action, single action. They seem like pretty cool guns. I mean, it's an answer to the question of hey, you want a 226, but you're a fan of 45. That's the gun for you.
So we get listener TJ Gauthier.
Never heard of him.
We never heard of him. He is the originator of your Colt Walker troubles.
Oh God,
you'll love that. I'll get a text message once this show publishes. So he says, I've been forgetting to send in my handgun submission, so here it goes. Basically, I want a larger Glock 42s and 43s. The specs for each would be the same, available in 3.5 inch, 4 inch, and 4.5 inch. Have corresponding grip lengths for each barrel length, or better yet, a modular system like the SIG 320, probably except with a whole drop thing. Better than stock trigger, something in the 4.5 pound range with a smoother pull. Better sights out of the box. My preference is fiber optic front, black serrated rear with manipulation ledge. Forward slide serrations, because why not? No, isn't he just so high speed, low drag?
I like forward slide serrations. You can make fun of Babyface all you want on that one, but I like forward slide serrations.
Pixie.
The Pixie.
If you don't like them, don't use them. Okay. Magazines. ETS makes mags for the 42/43 that increases capacity by 1 and are still flush. They also make 9 and 12 round variants that would correspond to the longer grips. These would be the base for the mags. Now the big part. Calibers 9 and 380, obviously, but I would also like to see them in 32 ACP and 22 long rifle.
Okay. Why would you do that, TJ?
Because 32 ACP is awesome.
In what way?
In what way? I don't know. Ask Jeremy Posner. He'll tell you.
Less powerful than the almost powerful enough 380, and now with a semi rim, so you can get rim lock.
Well, load it right.
Well, he's not lying.
The only thing I could say about 32 ACP that really is getting my juices flowing is the idea of getting a North American Arms mini revolver in 32 ACP. That would be the berries.
With the 1 inch barrel.
Yeah, don't tease me.
I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, it's just one of those, the semi rim. So it's set to go into a revolver. 32 ACP is narrow enough that they need to make it bigger. It'd be kind of the midi revolver, if you will. It'd be a little bit larger than their standard 22 guns, but wouldn't necessarily be that much bigger. It's low pressure, so they wouldn't need to beef up the frame too much more. Just great design, and you're throwing something a little bit more than 22 long rifle or 22 Magnum.
So Weerd, what's your drink segment this week?
All right, so I gotta go back to where I'm in the show notes.
I am posting a link to this show, and I'm tagging Craig in it, so hopefully he gets it.
Yes. So Craig asked me if I had a variation on the Harvey Wallbanger. I don't. Now the big is actually, so interesting enough, this is evidently a favorite of my mother back before I was born, because there was a friend of the family that we'd always go over to. And
that explains a lot, by the way.
He'd always be mixing drinks, and he'd always ask my mom if she wanted a Harvey Wallbanger, and she would always say no. But he always asked her, and he's not the type of guy to ask her just to be a jerk. He was asking her because evidently she tossed back quite a few back in the day. But so for those who don't know, a Harvey Wallbanger is essentially a screwdriver, which is a shot of vodka in a glass of orange juice. And then this has got an addition of some Galliano, which is an Italian herbal liqueur. and it's described as having notes of anise and vanilla, and other herbal businesses on it. So I don't know where the profile is, because there's stuff that tastes anisey and there's stuff that tastes like a black jelly bean. So I don't know where it sits in there. I've never had one because I really don't like orange juice at all. I don't like it as a drink. And on top of that, all of the drinks that I've made with orange juice in them, even things like the Bronx cocktail or the Blood and Sand that just use a small amount, the orange juice just overpowers it, and just it's all you can taste. And so I generally kind of stay away from drinks that use orange juice, because I just feel that you're not going to get the sum of the parts in there. That being said, when I was researching this, I was reading about Galliano. There's a drink called the Yellowbird, which is rum, triple sec, lime, and Galliano. And I kind of want that. So I'll be picking up a bottle soon. Also, a neat fact, just one of these little bartending things, is Galliano is often used in drinks that have the word wall in them, such as the Harvey Wallbanger. And the reason is the bottle is really, really tall and thin. And so because it's so tall, they'd put it in the back of the bar rack. And so it would be up against the wall. So there's a drink called a slow, comfortable screw against the wall, tee-hee. But that is because it is slow gin, SLOE, comfortable screw. Vodka and orange juice, screwdriver. Southern Comfort for your comfort. And Galliano up against the wall.
That is so complicated. I mean, when I went down and visited you, Weerd, what'd we do? Just a little bit of whiskey in a glass?
I definitely poured you some 10-year-old Spayburn in a snifter, and
that was fantastic.
You complained less about that than the flight of cocktails that I made for you.
Excellent. So with that, we'll head into the main topic: handgun accessories, or handguns that are good for things they weren't designed for? Question mark. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Upward inflection.
So Weerd, this was your idea. So what started you on this path?
And actually, I was watching a video by Jeff Zimba, and he was talking about he was actually shooting the Maxim 9, and he was talking about talking about the Maxim 9 and talking about the Osprey suppressor, and talking about the Osprey, you don't need suppressor sights. And it popped into my head all of a sudden that, you know what, though, I shot a FN what is it, the P45 tactical? I forget. FN's gone through like so many different variations of their polymer.
XYZ tactical.
Yeah, exactly. I forget exactly which little bit of word salad after FN, but it was the hammer fired double action single action polymer FN45 that's, the size of a Wheaties box, and it's got the threaded barrel and suppressor sights right on it from the factory, and the person who owned it doesn't have a can for it. But let me tell you, as soon as the sights came up, I went, oh my God, like these really big, tall suppressor sights are really, really fast to pick up. They're like better than low mount sights. And I just didn't expect that, and realized that, you know what, having suppressor sights, yeah, there's a snag factor and some other issues that, might preclude you from wanting tall sights on your gun. But having tall sights on your gun, if you're going to do it, like, it's not bad. And then of course, the other thing that I thought of to go on with this is, of course, the SIG brace, which can we openly say that the only reason why people are buying SIG braces is not to strap them to their arms?
Yeah. I have a shockwave blade and
one to your arm.
Yeah. I originally bought it for it to be a pistol, but somehow every once in a while it ends up being a rifle-ish type thing.
I strapped one on a SIG 5.56 to my arm, and it was the most uncomfortable. I had to have like the Arnold Schwarzenegger promotional poster lean, like to get it to line up.
Yep.
Like from the Terminator movies, and it just, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Like, all over the place it's just so hard to shoot them strapped to their arm. But oddly enough, if you put them to your shoulder, and use them like a little stubby rifle stock. Now you've got, and that's the whole big reason why it became such a flash in the pan, is you've got yourself an SBR without the tax stamp.
They look so bulky though.
I don't know. I mean, the concept, I suppose it would work, and I can't comment on whoever made these things in the first place, because I don't even really know.
Well, it was a veteran. It was a veteran who originally designed it for the purpose of helping people who had disabilities. So it had a purpose behind it.
That has a legitimate purpose. But then once people realize, like, oh, so if we just do it this way, then it could be a brace.
It's really a classic example of engineers out engineering legislatures.
It's like, I love that little the pistol grip on the ARs with a little fin on the back.
Yeah,
and there you go. It's legal.
Yeah, that's what I've got. The Shockwave blade. Yeah, I'll tell you this. It's not comfortable to shoot from your shoulder though.
But no. I mean the one where like you had it has to be like New York legal or something.
Oh yeah.
And so they actually got like the pistol grip with just like a little fin on the back.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, those things are it. And actually, going in this, we actually missed something from the intro. Listener Brian sent this in, and I thought this would be great for you and Weerd, because you guys are the political consultants. So, love your podcast. Would you please address the following thought? Do you think the idea of the left focusing on the gun violence rather than the criminals who commit a crime while using a gun is an attempt to avoid the uncomfortable idea of personal responsibility by people who are likely their constituents or potential constituents? Savage.
Yeah, this one. So the big rallying cry behind, and I'm a guy who's on the left-hand side of politics most of the time, but I cannot forgive the Democratic and far left-leaning people for doing this. It's a rallying cry for the feels. We have to feel like we've done something. Therefore, we have to apply faulty logic to a problem to make it look like we're doing something without actually accomplishing anything. You see this a lot, especially here in my home state of Washington, with the laws they passed. They passed a gun tax in the city of Seattle. And the result of that gun tax was supposed to be a boon of $500,000 for the city. And so they were going to use that money to fund anti-gun studies, to study gun violence and how they can quote unquote fix it some more. But the net result was that all the gun shops left the city limits. Therefore, the city was unable to collect any taxes, or hardly any. When it finally came out 2 years later, they had collected just barely over $100,000. And because the city refused to release the information, I believe the Second Amendment Foundation sued them in order, with a FOIA request, in order to get that information out. The lawsuit cost the city $100,000. During that time, when they expected to be able to get the $500,000 in tax revenue, they preemptively gave Harborview Medical Center $350,000 to perform their gun study, and the Seattle, their gun injuries went up 36% that year, and they had estimated previously that gun injuries cost the city $186,000 a year. So they're over $500 million in the hole. But they are trying to make it so that their laws are doing something. So the point isn't really to accomplish anything; it's to look like they're doing something. And it's really sad, because if they were to actually invest in programs that had scientifically, verified outcomes, if people go to cureviolence.org, they have a proven program that has between a 44 to 56% success rate in reducing homicides in a given area where that program is. Whereas Seattle lost $500 million and more people died. So it's fantasy solutions versus actual solutions, and the actual solutions aren't sexy, so it doesn't sell.
And the actual solutions involve banning guns?
They love that. They absolutely try.
But that's what I'm saying
New York.
I haven't been to the website you were going to, but I assume it does not say ban guns.
No, it has nothing to do with guns. So what true
So
violence?
that's what I wanted to tag onto this.
Right.
Is the reason why they focus on gun violence is, I mean, he's in part right, because as a general rule, your left-leaning people are for salvation. You know, we'll call it bleeding heart. Let's not, you know, I'm not gonna go and insult them. This is the Gun Blog Variety Cast and the Squirrel Report.
Don't hold back.
So this isn't my political soapbox here. You guys know my other podcasts, but I'll just say that as a general rule, they stand up, for the people. They look into each individual and treat them as an individual, not as a demographic. So therefore, it's very, very hard for them to go after crime as a general rule. But meanwhile, they've got no sympathy for guns. So having gun violence allows them to focus on guns rather than violence, which is inflicted by people. I would also add, it adds a very, very messed up, screwed up moniker. I hate the terms gun violence, gun death, all of those. And I always address those with ridicule, and everyone should, because nobody cares about gun death or gun violence. We care about violence and we care about death. If the gun deaths went down 100% and were tripled with other means of death, I mean, essentially we have what was better known in history as the Dark Ages. Gunpowder wasn't invented yet, but people were killing each other like crazy. You don't want to deal with that. That's bad news. And it also allows them to point out that, yes, in places like England where you can't really get a gun, it's very, very difficult. And, a much smaller percentage of the population owns guns. It's harder for criminals to get guns. When they get guns, they're machine guns and grenades and things like that. But they'll point out, oh, England's got a very, very low gun death rate. Well, yes, but what's their violent crime rate? It's on par with ours, and in certain areas vastly worse than ours, because no, they're not. Places like Scotland has an extremely high violent crime rate, and ever since before gunpowder was invented, the Scots have never been particularly interested in guns. They like to stab and stomp each other to death.
Yeah, and another good example is Australia. Just like England, it always had a historically low firearm crime rate. But if you compare Australia to the United States between 1994 and 2014, that 20-year span, in that span, we dropped the assault weapons ban, and a lot of permissive concealed carry, open carry, and other pro-gun bills were passed in the United States that loosened our gun laws. Our gun crime rate dropped at a faster rate than Australia's did during that same time period. Even though their overall gun crime rate was extremely low, we still beat them percentage-wise while loosening gun laws. So again, it just doesn't. The math doesn't add up. It's just they love using gun violence as a catch-all term when you really have to break it up into the different categories that it is. There's accidental deaths, there's homicides, there's suicides, and all those different categories have different vectors for treating them, for going after them. You can't just try and blanket everything with one foul swoop and assume it's going to solve the problem.
They accuse the right of using scare tactics in the news to get people to be afraid, yet go after their own personal things they need to go after to accomplish their goals, and exacerbate, oh, you could be the victim of a mass shooting, when, as terrible as they are, they're not a common occurrence.
Right.
It's just each side blows up everything they need for their agenda.
Yeah.
So we're back in the accessories here.
Wow.
Yeah, tangent there. The Makarov bottle opener. Yeah. Makarov bottle opener. No, I'm leaving it as is.
I know. I'm
Makarov
teasing.
bottle opener. Weird. This was your edition.
Yeah, this is something that always amused me so much. Now, I believe this works for anything that's based on the Walther PP, which is a huge number of guns. But all of these guns are blowback pistols. And so therefore the barrel is fixed. And what's nice is when you lock the slide back, you've got the dust cover underneath the barrel and the barrel. You can use that as the fulcrum for a bottle opener.
Oh,
now I've heard
I can do that with my Sterling.
I'd heard the Galil had a bottle opener on it.
Yes, it actually did. Yeah, because what were they using to open the bottles? They were using the floor plate of the magazines.
Yeah, I'm not sure which. I remember hearing about it in Tales of the Gun episode, I think.
They might have been even using the feed lips. I actually know a guy who uses a Stanag mag as a bottle opener.
So who added Glock 22 as an anti-personnel mag?
I did.
It has to be weird.
I did it. I was just we're just being silly at this point in time. But yeah, no, that was the joke. Of course, was my favorite one was the picture of the Glock grenade, because Gaston Glock actually. So, I mean, we all know Gaston Glock's a firearms maker, but really he was an injection molding guy. He was making curtain rods and knives and things like that before he decided to go and make a gun. And so I believe this was after he started making the guns, but he came up with an injection molded body for an anti-personnel grenade. And the picture, of course, is of this, polymer grenade with the Glock logo stamped on the bottom of it. And somebody said Glock, the humorous caption is Glock also made in shape of a gun. And this was all after when the Glock 22 came out. The Glock 22 suffered from a couple of problems. The biggest one is it was based on the Glock 17. So therefore it was a 9mm scaled up. And I think we talked about this in a previous show. Again, it's always good when manufacturers start big and scale down. I think we talked about it in our Dream handgun thing. It talked about
you look at my first experience with Glock. I looked at the 9mm, and my dad carried a 40 Glock 23, and one day someone was like, "Here, shoot my Glock 21." I think 45 auto, and I was like, this is a lot bigger than the 23.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that you actually step up in frame when you go to the 45.
Yep. And again, they started that off as a 10mm. So that 45 is not going to have any problems, because that gun can survive being shot with a 10mm all day long.
And that was a long time ago. That was not recently. I don't want people to think I didn't realize that, but that was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I wasn't really a Glock guy. I mean, I had shot the 40s and I had shot the 9s, and I never had a chance to shoot the 45s and the 10s, and I didn't realize actually how much bigger they were. Yeah.
But yeah, so the first gen Glock 22s, which was the second gen Glocks, I believe, were designed off of a 9mm frame, not a 40 Smith & Wesson frame. I believe actually now all the Glocks are all the smaller frame Glocks are built off of 40 Smith & Wesson frames. You don't quote me on that. But yeah, that and the fact that they were being issued at high numbers to police departments, and police departments have a lot of administrative handling on there. They do a lot of the, take the gun off and empty it, put it away, then take the gun back out later, and then rechamber the round. And a lot of cops were essentially shuffling the two rounds in the gun all the time. So there was, every time they were taking a suspect into a booking room, going into a holding area, any place where they had to disarm, they were unloading and rechambering the same round over and over and over again.
That sounds like an awful policy. Oh my God.
Oh, I strongly disagree with that. Especially I was arrested at one point, and the cops unloaded it and unloaded their guns and then put them into a lockbox. Just throw them in there and lock the box.
Seriously.
Why do you need to go that extra step? The gun's not going to load itself inside the box. And then once the gun's in the box, it's not going to shoot.
Well, and I can see back in the day also you didn't have, back in the day you had a lot of cops shot by their own gun because they didn't have retention holsters.
Yep.
Nowadays it might not be as much of an issue. I'm not sure. I can't speak to that, but I can definitely see the difference between, 1983, 84, 85 and, now with holster design and stuff like that.
Yep. But essentially the biggest thing was they kept rechambering that. And 40 Smith & Wesson, number one, the 40 Smith & Wesson was designed in the era of hollow points. So that's why even with your full metal jacket rounds, they have a flat point to them because they designed 40 Smith & Wesson to be a hollow point. And so even the rounds that don't have a hollow point have the shape of a hollow point to them. So you've got that big wide bearing surface on the front of it. It's a relatively fat and short round. It's loaded to very, very high pressures. And all of that means that once that round starts getting set back a little bit, it's going to be catastrophic. On top of that, the Glock 22 in that first generation that it came out with had a hole cut into the chamber for the extractor claw to go into that left a piece of the head webbing unsupported. All of those things added up to
kaboom.
And again, note that most cops don't shoot their guns except when required by the department to do so. So you come up 6 months, a year before your next qualifier, and you've been rechambering the same round over and over and over again. And now you're going to pull that gun out of the holster, point it down range, and pull the trigger. Ba-boom! And it's going to blow out. It's going to crack the slide. It's going to destroy the frame. It's probably going to cut you up. And so the joke about Glocks blowing up was there. It's not 100% Glock's fault. Some of it was just the fact of the 40 Smith & Wesson coming on the scene. And some of, the only thing that Glock really had was the unsupported chamber. I don't know why they wouldn't know that, why they, there's no reason for them to know that scaling up a 9mm frame around the 40 Smith & Wesson, which was designed to be put in a 9mm size gun. That's just something that we just had to figure out on our own. And the unsupported chamber, that's a bit of a problem. The rest of it, but 90% of the explosive, I mean, it doesn't matter what gun you have, you start rechambering the same round over and over and over again. And specifically something like a 40, you're going to blow up any gun.
So they should have stuck with the 10.
Continuing in the Glock discussion, Savage, you have the last one here, the empty pocket in the Glock magwell.
Yeah, so it's just something I noticed a couple of different products that there were out for it. I don't know why Glock originally kept it, maybe just to keep the same overall shape of the of the handle all the way down. But obviously the magazine is set forward of the back of the back strap, so there's this extra pocket space back there. Some people, they tend to put plugs in them every once in a while, so there's little plastic plugs that can cover that up to prevent dirt and other things from getting in there. But the guys from Endo, I believe, is that correct? Yeah, Endo Tactical have come up with a stock adapter that fits in there. And what you can do is either get that and get the stock put on there like a real AR style stock, or you can put a pistol brace on the back of this thing, and so you don't have to go through the whole SBR BS. And then it fixes to the gun, and you can have your pseudo SBR out of a Glock instead of having to get like a little Roni kit.
Yeah, I've seen those before, and then you also have the magwell extensions you could put on there.
Yep.
A lot of people, I think, when they do the grip reshapes, they'll fill that with a polymer and then like sand around that.
Have you guys seen Nick's what he did with his Glock 19?
No.
He cut a Glock 19 frame down to the Glock 26 size.
Okay.
So you have a Glock 19 length slide.
A Glock 26 long slide.
No, a Glock 19 length slide.
But the end result is a Glock 26 long slide. It's a Glock 26.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
With a longer slide.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Savage, why haven't you done something like that? You're the guy who does that sort of thing.
I've definitely done some bad things to guns before, but if I'm going to be building a Glock 19 in the near future, and I just rather kind of build it up nice. I'm not saying what Nick did isn't nice. It definitely has a purpose, but I don't think it's something that would fit my purposes per se.
You should cut down your CZ99.
It's aluminum, dude. What the hell? What magazine am I going to put? I guess if I
Since
really
when has that stopped you?
If I wanted to go nuts, it would fit a 6906 magazine, which is pretty short and stubby. So I could cut it down if I wanted to.
Oh! Guess what? You could cut down your Smith & Wesson, cut down the frame of that, and then get this. You can run it off of the. You could run it off the 10-round Keltec P10 magazines.
P11, yeah.
P11, yeah.
That's true. That is true. That would work. No.
The guy who put more rivets in a holster than the Titanic had is telling me that he can't cut the frame of his CZ99.
Dude, that is a beautiful gun. I don't want to hurt that gun.
I figured you wouldn't do anything to it because you like it so much.
I really do.
All right, so with that, we'll head into the wrap-up section and close out the show. Don't forget to shop Brownells using our affiliate link. Head to firearmsradio.tv and click the affiliate link in the upper right-hand corner. Be sure to go to like Handgun Radio on Facebook and share it with your friends. Leave us a review on iTunes. It helps the show get noticed. Listen to all the great shows on the Firearms Radio Network, and be sure to visit the Firearms Insider. Be sure to check out the Firearms Radio Network on YouTube. And Weerd, where can people find you?
You can find me at my blog, which is weirdworld.com. I'm also on the Squirrel Report and the Gun Blog Variety Cast, where I talk about the politics stuff that I kind of shied away from here. So if you were like, Weerd, come on, go hot on this, you listen to the shows.
We appreciate you being on as always. And Savage, where can people find your videos, your articles, and your grow techniques?
Oh God, Jesus. Well, my personal videos are practically non-existent. So any videos I make will be over on the We Like Shooting channel on YouTube, and I'm always on the weekly podcast as often as I possibly can be over there. And it's a whole
what is
lot
this
of fun.
We Like Shooting? I've never heard of it.
I know.
I don't know. What is
it's
that?
this thing with some guys. They're kind of dicks, but you know they're all right.
Well, be sure to go check that out. There'll be links in the show notes. So until next week, have fun and safe shooting.